Breda murder trial has been moved to the family home in Stellenbosch. Martin van Breda, his wife Teresa and son Rudy were hacked to death 2 years ago, allegedly by his son Henry, but he's pleaded not guilty. Annika Larsen is there for us this morning. Good morning to you, Annika. At 10 o'clock, you were expecting that the in-loco inspection would take place. Give us a sense of what has been happening for this morning's court proceedings.
Thanks, Kathy. Yes, about 30 journalists rocked up here outside the Zalse golf estate to gain access to the property for this inspection in loco. An inspection in loco, as we discussed earlier, is when a courtroom actually moves to a crime scene with the judges, the registrars, all the advocates, the accused, and anyone else interested in watching the trial. But of course, does the right to court access trump the right to privacy? And I think that there were quite a few concerns from residents here and the security officials here that by filming we would invade their privacy and open them up and make them vulnerable to any potential criminals. Well, I can tell you, Kathy, that they did eventually let us in after a lot of pressure, but this is a high security estate. There are electric fences on every wall, there are surveillance cameras, there are security teams that patrol and drive around at all hours. It's extremely difficult to get in, but once you're in, residents, we're told, sleep with their doors open. It's almost pastoral, it's idyllic, it's a piece of paradise if you like to live in a walled off estate. A lot of people don't feel that they're cut away from the world, and this certainly, you're in a idyllic, beautiful property here in the winelands of Stellenbosch, but the houses, I must tell you, are very close together. So we get inside, we drive along past all these very tightly knit community cul-de-sacs of houses, if you like, and the first question one thinks to oneself is, surely someone must have heard something. 4 people being axed, bludgeoned, 3 to death with an axe. Unless they were fast asleep, there must have been some noise. Why did it take a year for an arrest to be made? All these questions are going through one's head as you're driving through this beautiful estate. And Henry van Breda, the accused, the son of the Breda parents, Teresa and his father, who was also axed to death, in line with his defense team. As we said yesterday, one of them, Shrin Dewani's senior counsel, the man who represented the so-called honeymoon killer, who was then not convicted several years ago and went back to the UK. He was very subdued watching proceedings, hearing about the fact that there was blood splatter on the wall adjacent to the Van Breda house, and just taking the prosecutor and taking the judge through the crime scene, how high the walls are, was there a fence, was there an open window, and just allowing him to familiarize himself and his colleague with the crime scene.
Was it at all an emotional experience for Henry van Breda, given that this is the same place where he lost his parents and his brother?
You know, that's a very interesting question, and I would always think back to the Oscar Pistorius trial. I think because the slight parallels here, bathroom, high security estate, you know, blood splatter, violent crime, and you and I covered the case, and he was, Henry van Breda seems quite detached from what's going on. He's out on bail, he may be medicated, but you know, I have no way of determining that, but this must be, whether he is guilty or innocent, this must be quite a difficult place for him to be. As the police officer said yesterday, he was very emotional when he arrived on the scene. It was almost as if he wanted to just blurt everything out. He just wanted to speak and say what was going on those first few hours after his mother, father and brother lay lying dead on the floor of their family home, and his sister Marley's leg moving before he called emergency services. And so he didn't seem to be tearful, he seemed to be red-eyed, but certainly not crying and not seeking any sort of comfort from his legal team.
And so where does this leave us today in terms of the case proceedings? Are you done there?
We as the media have been told to leave. We were not allowed inside the house. I think, the house went on sale for millions. It took a long time to sell after the crime. It's now inhabited by a gentleman who lives on his own, we understand, and who is loath to have his house, quite understandably, photographed. So we were asked to please go away once we'd got our shots from the exterior of the house, and we are now waiting for the judge and the prosecution and defence teams to come out.
Annika Larsen out in Stellenbosch for us. Thanks for that, Annika.